Good evening, Tom. Tom Manley is here already. We've got 3 people already. I'm a little early, a couple of minutes. So Monaco 64 here, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So I'm going to take all your questions. Well, I'll try to take almost all your questions. Sometimes I get a lot of questions and I miss them. You have to remind me. And the title as well, I said I want to talk about bank leverage. Yeah, I saw a few interesting articles this afternoon. I was reading on Zero Hedge, and I think it's, yeah, it just goes to show that banks have not, like, how can I say, been reformed. And it's not just Deutsche Bank. Hi, Pablo, how are you? NASDAQ say hi. Good evening, everyone. Just turn this around a little bit. So yeah, so just wait until most people arrive. Bye-bye, Kid Ademi. When will Deutsche Bank go under? I don't know when Deutsche Bank will go under, but Deutsche Bank is not the only bank in trouble, and you'd be surprised what other banks are, how banks are highly leveraged. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Terry Rabidu, hi Monaco, hi Terry. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Terry. So we've got, what, 39 people so far. Good evening, Mario Altomo. Belgian beer is out of the fridge. Let's go. Yeah, Jefferson Humber. Good evening, Mario. What do we make of the news Zero Hedge earlier? People's Bank of China reducing reserve ratio. I think it's probably priced in. I think most people were expecting it. Even Zero Hedge say, they're saying that they were expecting it. Hi, Stephen Kendall. Nice to see you here. So what I want to start about is about bank leverage. Is that I saw an article today on Zero Hedge called "Legendary Investor Warns of Frightening Recession." And he says, we don't have any stabilizers left. And it's surprising. He was doing like an interview with Lloyd Blankfein. So Lloyd Blankfein, who's CEO of Goldman Sachs, is doing a live interview with this big hedge fund guy called Paul Tudor Jones on Yahoo Finance. I just found it funny, I think maybe Lloyd Blankfein is trying to get into the podcast or video business. The CEO of Goldman Sachs, and the interesting thing is that Paul Tudor Jones, who's an independent, he even notes that in the mid '80s he tried to get a job at Goldman Sachs, but as he was a futures trader, they ignored him. The guy, yeah, I was in the futures business. Anyway, one part of the interview that was really interesting is when Paul Tudor Jones says that the biggest crises in the last 30 years have been related to derivatives and leverage. And Lloyd Blankfein goes, yeah, a lot of leverage into derivatives. Yeah. And I had a look today because the Office of Controller of the Currency in the US, they keep track of leverage of banks. And one thing about derivatives, over-the-counter derivatives, and also exchange-traded derivatives, is that they're over-the-counter, so they're off-balance sheet. And I'm looking at the latest numbers from the first quarter of this year. Goldman Sachs has 41 trillion notional in derivatives, $41 trillion. And I had a look at the Goldman Sachs balance sheets. Their shareholder equity is just above 70 billion. So that means that Goldman Sachs is leveraged over 500 times their shareholders' equities with derivatives. I had a look at, and they have 40 trillion in derivatives. JP Morgan, they're leveraged just over 300 times. They've got 75 trillion in derivatives, but their balance sheet is their shareholder equity is bigger than Goldman Sachs. It's about 220 billion. So there you go. Amazing. Uh, Here you have Lloyd Blankfein interviewing Paul Tudor Jones, and I think he's in front of young people doing this presentation on Yahoo Finance, and Paul Tudor Jones brings up derivatives and how every time there's a crisis, it's because of all the leverage. And Lloyd Blankfein doesn't bat an eye, even though his bank is the most leveraged bank in the world, 500 times its shareholder equity. So there you go. So I'll look at some more questions and say hi to a few more people. Tom Menley, hi Tom. What's your take on central bank buying up gold kilos like there is no tomorrow, pushing delivery out 8 weeks from Swiss refineries? Yeah, that is going on. The kilos are usually in the Far East. Western central banks buy 12-ounce bars, or or is it 400-ounce bars? Sorry, 12-kilo bars. But yeah, the Chinese like the kilo bars. Well, it just goes to show that it's very tight, and the paper manipulation probably won't be able to keep going forever. J.L. Allegra, hi Mario, good evening. With 5,000 euros to invest, what or where is the safest way now to have some profits in medium term? Well, I don't give financial advice like that. I mean, you need to do your own homework. What I talk about here is what money really is and how the financial system really is. You've seen that I've just talked about how the Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are leveraged. That goes to all 2 European banks. I don't know where you are, but one thing I would say is try to keep as little of that 5,000 out of the financial system. You might make profits, but if the counterparty you have the money with collapses, you won't even get your money back. I think you should think like that first. Personally, that's what I would do. And for I'm not here to advise you where to put it, but one thing I would say, if you want it safe, you keep it in precious metals. That's what I do personally. I do have some cryptocurrencies. That's more speculative, and we've seen in the last 24 hours what cryptocurrencies have done. But I'm just sitting on it. I'm not leveraged. I don't have any debt, so I'm able to sit through these ups and downs. Yeah, that's the other thing as well, J.L. Allegri. Make sure you don't leverage yourself. If you've got that money and you can afford to lose 5,000 euros, do something. It depends what your risk profile is. Let's have a look. What else? Hi, Mark from Montreal. Nice to see you. David, new post Russia dumping U.S. treasuries. Is China next? Yeah, I think the Russia story was from April. They sold 46 billion or half their holdings. Yeah, we'll have to see. China could be next. Bitcoin's the only one to drop further, 20,000 now, solid 5,000 to come. Thank you, Patrick, for the donation on Super Chat. Stephen Kendall, is the incoming global trade war a cover-up for a 1970s-style inflation run, as tariffs add billions to the GDP and debts remain the same? Well, I think it's probably all a cover for negotiations that are going behind the scenes between sovereign countries about resetting the system. And yeah, it's a cover for something. And it's probably also a cover for maybe a collapse. And the powers that be will say, oh, that was the reason why the system, the market, and the economy collapsed, because Trump started a trade war. And I think that's rubbish. I don't even think the Smoot-Hawley tariffs in the 30s started the depression. The depression in the U.S. and the world happened because after World War I, we had a massive bubble and money printing like we've had now, and that's why we had a. And then we had a bank run in the early 30s. The system, was leveraged just like now, and they blamed it on the tariffs. But yeah, I think it will be a cover for everything that we know is wrong and it's going to go wrong. They always try to find scapegoats so that the public actually ask, uh, they want a reaction from the public so they can take charge even more of the system, even though they are the ones to blame for all this, not trade wars. And I think Donald Trump knows about that. Hi, John Roberts. How are you doing? Um, Clown with Twitter account. The value of gold that we have in the world is only about 8 trillion. How are we going to have growth if we only rely on gold as currency? At the present price, Clown, that's what it is. But if they revalue it, let's say 20 times higher, that's that's going to be a lot more than 8 trillion, isn't it? You do the maths. That's 160 trillion. That would be a pretty good base. Or 10 times, that would be 80 trillion. It all depends on the price. Let's see. EOS, lol, JK, these nuts. I don't know what you mean by that, JK, but put it in the solar mining rig. Clown with Twitter account. Why it was a split among the Austrian School of Economics? Why is there a split? Which split are you talking about, Clown? Specify it, please. JJ, I think Trump's tariffs will be blamed instead of the money printing from '08. Yeah, I agree. Trump is just like he's just like doing his job for the people in charge. He's not any different. He's not any different than Bush Jr., Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. He's not different. I mean, I saw something today saying that the way he's acting, and then people bring excuse. He's doing something. He's being really clever. That's why he's done that, even though it looks like he's a globalist. He's brought John Bolton because he needs his enemies next to him. I think it's rubbish, and I agree with you. Oh, you're welcome, Stephen Kendall. No problem. Okay, let's have a look. Clown with the Twitter. Why do you favor Austrian school over the School of Economics? Which School of Economics are you talking about? The Austrian school versus, is it the Keynesian School of Economics? Don't know which one. David L. Rappers 50 Cent has big VIX calls on the stock exchange for the VIX to double. The problem with these VIX derivatives is that they're all written by the banks, a lot of them. So you're dealing with a bank when you're doing that. And if the markets were to really implode and VIX to explode, you might think you have a profit on paper, but you might not even get paid. And there's a lot of small prints on these. So I wouldn't really play derivatives in the VIX. I'd just stay with cash or gold and silver. If the market collapses and you got cash, gold, and silver, it's like being short because you'll be able to buy, lower. Do you think Bitcoin will hit under 1,000? Who knows? It went last year from 1,000 to 20,000, and it's back down to like 6 now. So who knows where it will go? But no, I personally don't actually. I think it will hold around here, Bitcoin, but I could be wrong. I did say earlier in the year when it was coming down that it was going to take a lot longer for this correction to take place and for the market to go back up. So I'm not surprised we're almost in July here and we're still where we are. Trump is the ultimate fall guy. Of course he is. Yeah, Trump is burying U.S. and people is burying U.S. and people are just getting taxed for everything. Yet I don't. Well, I think the U.S. people have been buried since 1914, 1913, with the creation of the central bank. Alex 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 Alexander, close mind in Monaco. Stop golfing and do some more research. Alex Alexander, Trump is the man. Well, I mean, his actions are mixed. I'm not sure. I agree with you. I was like with George Bush Jr. when he was running in 1999, 2000, he was saying, we're going to have a humble foreign policy. We're going to be isolationist. And look what he did. And Trump, I was quite encouraged when he was campaigning, but he's disappointed me. And I guess it just goes to show you can't trust politicians, even though you might say Trump isn't a politician, but he is because he got elected. Olgi, many are thinking to short the market today. Have you heard it? What market is that? Do you mean the stock market? I haven't heard anything about that. Well, actually, Alex, I didn't play golf this weekend. I took a break. So let's see. David L., if not VIX calls, how about an ETF? No, they're all the same. They're all. I did trade them last year, I think. But you look at the prospectus; they're written by banks like UBS or Credit Suisse. You don't want to be involved in these things. They're like poison. These derivatives, especially for the retail investor, they'll screw you. The market gets really crazy, these all these derivatives, these ETFs are going to be worthless, in my opinion. Sedona TV, what do you think? Deutsche Bank had 212 times VAR loss in the US. I understand it was offset in another DB entity, and I haven't really looked into that. They probably had a bad position. Maybe there were I don't know, short treasuries, and treasuries rebounded in the last month. Ali B, hi Mario, peace from Dubai, peace Ali. David L, yes, there is much talk about a big short on the SPY, on the S&P. We'll see. Pat, do you think gold will rebound at 1240, 1250 range this week or not till July? Well, we closed around 1270. We'll have to see what happens later on tonight. I think we need not be too concerned about the fiat price of gold. I think there will be a day when you won't be able to find gold, and everything was, there will be a massive change in the system. So that's, I think, where we are right now. I think it's a distraction. I know I do follow the price, but I wouldn't be concerned. It's probably helpful if you're still thinking of buying, you can buy a bit more, for your dollar, more grams or ounces. David B. Hari, tell me, please, what do you think will ultimately put the market into a 10-20% correction? Thank you. I think one of the things that will do that will be the 10-year yield, the US 10-year yield. If we go back above 3% and retest the recent highs around 313, then we could see that starting to happen again. Yeah, so, or something that we haven't heard about, like back in 07, 08, not many people had heard about subprime mortgages. Hi, Brian. Good evening. Nice to see you here, the Maestro way. Danny Djokovic, I really hope the USA won't confiscate the precious metals, but the way things are looking, they seriously might decide to confiscate once the martial law is put in order. Actually, Danny, I think the U.S. is already has been under martial law for, I think, since World War One. So the U.S. is already under martial law. So is the UK probably. So we don't really have, the rule of law, I would say. And why do I say that? Well, because they used the war legislation for World War One in 1933 to confiscate gold, and they could use it again now, so they don't have to go into martial law. I was going to talk about something else I saw here. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about, because the title of this live stream is bank leverage. I spoke already about how Goldman Sachs, for those of you who just joined the live stream, I'll repeat, Goldman Sachs is leveraged over 500 to 1 in terms of their shareholders' equity. And that's in how much they've got, over 40 trillion in derivatives, which is off their balance sheet, $40 trillion, and their shareholder equity is 70 billion. So they're leveraged over 500 times. JP Morgan is leveraged about 300 times, just over 300 times. They've got 75 trillion in derivatives, notional, and their shareholder equity is 220. Now I'm going to talk about the bank for BIS, Bank for International Settlements. They've come out with a study saying that the banks, the big investment banks, these same banks, they're like cooking the books at the end of the quarter, end of the year. Before I do that, though, let's just greet some people that are coming here. And let's try to answer some questions. If you dollar cost average into gold, doesn't matter. Yeah, that's right. JJ, the mainstream media will only report on the tariffs and not the money printing. Of course. I don't hear anyone reporting on all the money printing and all the debt that's been created since, because to print money in our system, you need to create debt, right? Hurry up. Hurry, Crane, Annie. When ECB says it will keep rates low, should we believe that? Yeah, I think they will keep it unchanged till until next year. That's what they said. They might even cut more, So yeah, they might change that. So maybe not believe it. Yeah, but I don't think they'll raise it. Pat, I'm in the camp of 80% gold, 20% silver. What do you think? Yeah, I like that. That balance, Pat. I would concur with that. So the Bank for International Settlements is this is an article from Zero Hedge, and I'll put the link here for you guys. And what's ironic, that this is the bank that actually helps regulate these banks, the BIS, and they're saying that the banks now in Europe, the US, and the UK, they're still doing what Lehman was doing. So what are they doing? So what the banks are doing, the analogy is like a Olympic athlete. They have drug tests. But they're random, right? You never know when you're going to be drug tested if you're an athlete. But with the banks, what they do is that every quarter, end of the quarter or end of the year, they report their earnings. So the Federal Reserve and the other central banks, they allow them to use an instrument called reverse repo. You don't have to really understand what a reverse repo is. All it means is that on the end of the quarter, what the Fed will do is lend a lot of money to these banks, or let them have it all cash, so it looks like they're not as leveraged. So, and this was supposed to have ended, but the central banks and the BIS allowed the banks to do it. So basically what the Federal Reserve and all the other central banks are doing are allowing these big banks who they're supposed to regulate and to make safe. They're allowing them, they're telling them, we're going to do a drug test on such and such a date. And here's a pill that will show that you have taken no drugs, even though you have. So that's basically what's happening. So clown with Twitter account, zero hedges against everybody, lol. Well, clown with Twitter account, this story actually, they've taken something from the Bank for International Settlements. And the Bank of International Settlements is actually saying that this is happening, that they're basically cooking the books to make themselves not look as leveraged. And as I told you, Goldman Sachs is leveraged over 500 times their shareholders' equity with derivatives. So, Rick Bronx, when will employment suffer in the UK due to tariffs, you think? I don't think the UK will suffer much because of tariffs, because industrial production in the UK is only 16% of the economy. The UK is more of a service economy. So I don't think it will matter that much for the UK. The BIS is the New World Order. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, they are the head of the snake, in my opinion. I've made a lot of videos recently about this, the BIS. The other interesting thing I saw is that, where is it? Another zero hedge story, and I guess the clown with Twitter account will say, oh, they hate everyone, but it says hate speech policing big tech face dozens of defamation lawsuits after settlement by SPLC, or Southern Poverty Law Center. So there's a guy here in the UK. He's on talk radio on LBC, and he's won a few $1 million settlement against the SPLC. They call them extremist, anti-Muslim, even though he's a Muslim. So he sued them and got over $3 million. So what this article is saying, that a lot of this is going to like put them in the back foot, and this SPLC, they've been pushing the big companies like Google, Yahoo, YouTube, Amazon to like censor alternative, non-leftist views. So that's pretty interesting, I think. I've noticed in the last 2-3 weeks, my videos haven't been censored. I've been getting the green $, so which is good. So that means that they're allowing to say whatever I want and not censoring me. Maybe that's because of this, you see. Rick Bronx, thanks, appreciate comment, great show, you're welcome. Clown, I'm calling you a clown because it's a bit long to say clown with Twitter account. Do you think that Goldman and Deutsche Bank would be next, Lehman Brothers? Any of these big investment banks, you just have to look at the SIFI, just Google SIFI banks. Those are the banks that are regulated by the FSB, which is part of the BIS. Those are the banks that are most vulnerable to collapse. And yeah, there's a whole host of them. Mainly the major international banks, US, UK, France, Germany, Japan, Australia. Maybe not Australia, but yeah, those big, the major G7, international banks. David L., ever watched George Orwell, 1984? I think I read the book ages ago, and I don't, maybe I should read it again. I haven't watched the movie, maybe I should. Girl, Jir Oji, Norwegian government is looking towards China now to deal directly with them, bypass the dollar. Well, that's interesting. I saw today as well that there's 2 U.S. senators, I think, that are calling for the U.S. to stop, really punish Iran in the world financial system, to stop them dealing, basically cut them off the dollar system. Those kind of things are going to increase, countries' desire to get out of the dollar system. Pad, the SPLC is just one more tool of the Masonic freaks. Yeah, I agree with that. But it looks like they might be on the back foot. Fisher Hunter, why fiat currency crash now and not in years? I don't know. I think what's been happening, and I've read this in a few books, that one way to get to get big change is to get the governments of these countries or these regions really, really indebted, right? And how do you do that? Well, you create crisis, you get bailouts, get the governments to, and you would have thought in '08, things should have collapsed, but they didn't let it collapse, and they've indebted it even more. And I think it's come to a point where they can't do it. The next time they do it, they're not going to be able to recoup the system. And I think it was done on purpose because they have an agenda. I don't know exactly what it is. I think one of them is just to own as much as they can and have everyone be their servants, their slaves. And that's why I do these videos, to try to get people to protect themselves, to stay out of the system, not to play this game. And I know a lot of times it's frustrating because it seems that they can keep it going forever, but that's what they want to do. And then suddenly they'll just pull the plug and the whole, bathwater will come out, get out, the dam will break, and, everything will happen as they want. Harrison Hardcastle, what kind of silver do you invest in, and are you taxed on it? Yeah, I mean, in the UK, yeah, I think there are ways to avoid VAT, but I never really done that. Sometimes when I buy old coins, like from specialist coin dealers, and you're able to get away not having to pay VAT. But I have paid VAT, which is 20%. Just any kind of coins and bars I buy. I have the maple leaves. I have the old half dollars, 1964, silver quarters. I've got Britannias. I got a few bars. So just a variety. El Tomo S. I sometimes feel like I sound like a Jehovah's Witness when I talk about the banks and fiat money. People really don't have a clue. Sometimes I get the feeling they can't handle the truth. I think a lot of times El Tomo is they don't even understand what you're talking about. For them, money is just a piece of paper or something on their phone, or on the internet on their statement. They don't understand the mechanics. That's why you need to maybe explain to them, be from the beginning, what money is, like that people used to barter, and now you have, and then it facilitates exchange, and it's usually something that people hold, that people think is valuable, right? That the paper is only like a promise to pay those things. That's how you have to do it. But if you start just saying fiat money is bad, and we have to go back to gold, they won't understand it. And I wouldn't have understood this 25 years ago either. Buck Loish, Mario, hi Mario, great show again as usual. Did you see Lynette Zhang's video yesterday? Any observations? I think my wife was watching that this morning. I haven't watched it. I think she was like comparing how much you could buy in 1913. She had some loaves of bread. But no, I haven't watched all of it. My wife did. Maybe I'll ask her about it. She prefers Lynette Zhang than me. Well, she says that she listens to me already. when I'm not making videos, so she wants to have a different perspective. Don't blame her. No, my cheerleader. Hi guys, give an echoes a thumbs up by clicking the like button below. Be sure to share this video with your friends. Yeah, sharing is good because then it has like a network effect, so we can get the message out. I'm sure a lot of people probably won't like it, but new subscribers every day doesn't hurt. Paul Cyrus Shardrazar. All is intended to collapse on purpose. The bloodlines know the Earth's climate feedback loops are already taking place. They will do what it takes to smash down the population. It could be. I mean, I've looked at videos about the Georgia Guidestones, 500 million. So who knows? JJ Mara, can you give a list of your favorite documentaries? The Secret History of Money by Mike Maloney is one of my favorites. Yeah, I've watched that. I like Mike Maloney. He's good. I'm trying to think documentaries right now, but maybe in the next live stream, I'll have a list. Jesse James, how many bars of gold would you give for an assault rifle if the banking system began to go on holiday and you lived in Compton? Is that Compton? Isn't that LA? Well, I try not to live in Compton in the first place. I guess it would be priceless, an assault rifle. Clown, what's your view of New Jersey town has 3 million to settle the lawsuit by Islamic Society? I haven't heard about that story, so I don't have a view. Sorry. Best website. We need to reduce the population to under 1 million. Too many people, stupid people on Earth right now. Best website. He must be the head of the Illuminati. I'm joking. Yeah, that's a bit extreme there. 1 million. Golson 83. Do you think emerging markets will go down before USA and West countries? They already are. So yeah, it's starting at the periphery this time, or maybe they'll stabilize and then we will go down. Who knows? Fisher Hunter, surely holding productive agricultural land is good investment in the big crash. Warren Buffett says he would just fund the gold bars if he held them as they are not productive. True. I mean, but here in the UK, for example, I worked with a guy in the city. His dad, his family had, they're farmers in Essex, and he said that I think when his granddad died, that the farm had to be divided up. Some of it had to be sold off because of inheritance tax. But yeah, I wouldn't mind having a farm. But I've never been a farmer, so at least I live fairly close to the countryside where I am, so I would have access to the countryside. Pad Saturn is the worship of the control of time. Our time, they control our time, so we have no time to think. That's right. I agree with that, and that's why they say, oh, you shouldn't do this on Sunday or stuff, or you shouldn't do this on Saturday. You have to sleep 8 hours a day, right, Pat? So I think you just do whatever you think you're comfortable with. Have your own laws and your own rules. Of course, you have to be nice to people. You treat them as they want to treat you. the golden rule, I guess. That's really important. But yeah, just because they say, oh, you have to retire at age 65 or you have to do this and that, yeah, that's all rubbish. Be your own, be your own leader. Juru 84 elite know what's coming. They buy most of the gold. That's right. Some people would argue that it's the elite that control gold, and that we're wrong to have gold because we're being like them. But yeah, sometimes you got to do what they do to protect yourselves. They've been in that powerful position because they've had the gold. So maybe we take a leaf out of their own, out of their book. It doesn't mean we have to be like they are. I guess I'm not like them because I wouldn't be making these videos and telling people to be prepared. Mama Java, do you think the banking system is behind the current crypto crash? It's difficult to say. I don't know. I'm not sure. Bitcoin still, $5,000-$6,000. A year and a half ago it was 1,000. Maybe they were behind the the move up. They wanted to make. I don't know, because then they wanted to crash it to discourage people. I don't know. I don't think the Bitcoin futures has been around that long for them to be able to control the price, personally. Crack up boom or liquidity trap first? Uh, that's a question from Gary King's blank. I think it's the liquidity trap. I think the markets are really thin, and they're very, very leveraged, and they could, liquidity could vanish very quickly. So I'd go with that. Distinguished gentlemen, how can we protect our assets? Well, make sure they're not encumbered by that debt. That would be the first thing. And make sure, I don't know, that you're holding it safely, or you have a custodian that you can trust. Matthew Stocks, what do you think about Andrew Maguire? Well, I don't know. I think he's a bit. I'm not even sure if he's because when I heard about him years ago, he was supposed to be a Goldman Sachs like whistleblower. But what I learned, he didn't even work for Goldman Sachs. I think a lot of the things he says are credible, but I'm not sure. He knows what he's talking about, the gold market. He probably follow the markets just like I do, and we can tell, when they come in and they bash the precious metals, and it's always at the same time. So yeah. Why is China cutting bank reserve? Well, the reserve requirement rate, they're cutting it because uh, you know the financial health of the Chinese economy and markets and banks and companies is deteriorating. So they're making more money available, and that's why they're doing it. Pat, our inheritance tax in the U.S., yeah, anything over 5 million, much better than the UK. I agree. I agree with that. No inheritance tax in Canada. Yeah, there's no inheritance tax in Italy as well, nor in Brazil. So yeah, I have Italian and Brazilian passport, so maybe I should go back to Brazil. I don't know. Pat, the New World Order is the continuation of the Roman Empire. Yeah, I walked many times to work, and I would walk past the Bank of England, and not at the front, but at the back at Lothbury. They have like a little arch, and you can walk under the Bank of England. It's like on the pavement or sidewalk. And I looked up once, and on the ceiling of this little enclave, they had SPQR, which is Senato Populares Romanus, which is a Roman, it was a Roman saying, and they've got that on the Bank of England building, SPQR, uh, which is interesting. Rene, hello from Australia, and oh boy, I'm going to be late for work again. Yeah, you were 10 hours ahead, aren't you? At least in the east coast of Australia. So it's almost 10 o'clock here, so it should be about 7:45 in Australia in the morning on Monday. Harrison Hardcastle, the Roman Empire morphed into the Vatican. Yeah, and I think a lot of if you look back at all the popes and the families behind them, I think that's the black nobility. A lot of those people that became popes were like from those families, and they're very powerful still. I think they may be more powerful than the Rothschilds. I think maybe sometimes we give the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers too much importance. I think the old black nobility, they, they're like very much in the background, and you never hear of them, and that's how they won it, I think. If okay, what else have we got? Clown with Twitter account. Why is Trump threatening more tariffs on European exports? I think this is just. I think they're trying to, like we're talking earlier, they're trying to implode the system, and I think that's what's happening. But and so that, or maybe they know that the system is going to implode, so they're just coming out with these statements and threats, actually not doing anything. And then if it happens, they're going to blame it on the trade wars, right? Even though we know the reason it will come down is um, because of all the money they printed, since 1971, not just 2008. Pope Francis, a Jesuit. Yeah, I know he's the first Jesuit pope. The Jesuits, they started spying, didn't they? I think they started the MI6, MI5, MI6 in the UK. So they're the precursors to the intelligence agencies. And the reason for that is because in the Catholic Church, people go and confess, so they get really good information from everyone, the priests. Rain 8, close to 6:45 on the East Coast, but every time you're live, I run late, but worth it. Oh, you don't want to be too late. Yeah, about the Vatican, I've made videos before. In 1977, Paul Volcker, who was Fed chairman, later, a few years later. At the time, he was president of the New York Fed, and he wrote a letter to the Vatican Bank thanking them for allowing the New York Fed to use their gold. And they used that. What did they use that gold for? For leasing, for selling, to keep the price down. So they had to use Vatican gold to do that. El Tomo, thanks for the donation for the Billy pension fund. Yeah, for his bones, for his dentist sticks. He likes those. Yeah, Billy's not here today. He's gone up already. It's a little late. He was here earlier. He's been out in the garden a lot today because it's really nice, and he's been chasing birds. He's been barking a lot, and there's a lot of other dogs around, so he's had a good day. Over here, hi Mario, always good to listen to you. Are you working on getting a New Zealand and Aussie flag pillows for your sofa? Uh, well, I've looked into it. Uh, Maybe I will get one. Maybe I'll just get. They're very similar, aren't they? The Aussie and the Kiwi flags, even though an Aussie and a Kiwi might, not agree. But I'll think about it. uh, Clown with Twitter account. Why Saudis strike deal with OPEC to raise production? Is oil going to collapse? Well, actually, I read that the deal wasn't really gone that well. And if you look at what oil has done recently, it's actually rallied quite a bit on Friday, and we're almost back to $70. So I'm not too sure. The Vatican gold has been managed by the Rothschilds since shortly after the Battle of Waterloo. Yeah, it's true. I mean, and yeah, I think the Vatican, the Rothschilds are just a front. So are the other bankers. The Vatican has a lot of power. What currency does the Vatican hold? I think their official currency is the euro. Before that, it might have been the Italian lira, but I think their major holdings though is gold. Clown with Twitter account. Do you still read the FT? No. Sometimes I'll buy it because if I see something interesting that that I can talk to you guys about, I buy it. But very rarely. I try not to waste my time, my money with that. Does Billy like cats? Uh, Not really. I mean, there's a cat that tried to get into our house. We have French doors here in the study, and he tried to get in. My wife saw the cat, and then Billy came running, but the cat had gone, and he was really stressed out. He was trying to. He doesn't even like dogs too much. He's not very. He's really good with people, but he's a bit funny with other dogs, let alone cats. I think the reason he's not great with other dogs now is that a couple of years ago he was playing with a big Alaskan Malamute, and Alaskan Malamute hurt his eye really badly, almost got his eye out. So he's a bit, you know, cautious about bigger dogs now. Rothschild owned the geothermal plant in Hawaii that sparked volcano. They have over 600 earthquakes this week. Well, I didn't know that. They own a lot of stuff, the Rothschilds. Over here, how much gold and silver do you believe the Vatican holds in its vaults? Do you think the inventory all their precious metals relic throughout the world through church parishes? Yeah, I mean, and it's probably a secret anyway. They probably have the most gold, even more than the U.S. Who knows? If the U.S. had to borrow, the New York Fed had to borrow gold from them in 1977, that tells you something. There's probably a lot of Vatican gold at the Bank of England as well, I would say. I'll just tell you guys an interesting story from my time in the city of London. I worked many years as a futures broker, and for about 8 years I used to cover Italy, like Italian banks, pension funds, other Italian brokers, and I used to work with a guy called Luigi. So it was Mario and Luigi, and you said, and we had a client in Milan, a small regional bank based in Milan, and I used to trade a lot of BTP futures, which is the Italian government bond futures. And he became a really good client, and I used to deal a lot for this guy. And when I went to Milan, he actually invited me for lunch, and he also brought along his best client, the guy who was behind all the trading that my client did with me. And he said, "Oh, here's Mr. So and so. He's the nephew of the Pope." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I'm not going to say the guy's name, but you'll probably find out. His uncle was the Pope, one of the popes in the 1960s. So this guy, so I didn't even know I was dealing for the nephew of the Pope, buying and selling Italian government bond futures. He used to work for a bank. He didn't work for the Vatican Bank, but yeah. So that's my that's how the closest I've gotten to dealing for the Vatican. I was dealing for a guy whose deceased uncle was the Pope. Spartacus the Great. Hey, Maneco64, do you own any cryptocurrency? I do. I do. You know, I got involved in Bitcoin as early as 2012. I used to trade back then. Also the altcoins. But now, you know, I don't trade cryptocurrency, but I hold them now. Yeah, I am involved in cryptocurrencies, but more as speculation. I think, you know, the blockchain has a good future. And also the reason I looked into cryptocurrency is because, you know, how our fiat money system is so corrupt, and the central banking system. And Bitcoin was like an alternative to that. And some people will argue, say that it's part of the globalist agenda. You know, they started Bitcoin, but I don't know. That's another subject. Why the Vatican hold gold? Are they liberal communists? Nah, like philosopher says, gold is power. That's right. They don't want the sheeple to own gold, but they know that, you know, in times of uncertainty and war, no one will take a promise, a paper promise. They'll take physical gold, though. And that's what even Greenspan said in Congress. Canada, yeah, the Canadian, excuse me, government has no gold anymore. I think they've got 60 ounces or something like that. Communism is the basis for the Flavian created Christianity. Lily Robin, I'm looking forward to an EOS hard wallet. Cipher Glass has a bounty on it for, yeah, was it 100,000 bounty dollar? Right now, yeah, I'm using Simple EOS to look at my my holdings, and I have to say I've gotten already quite a few airdrops. I got KEOS airdrops. I got ad airdrop as well. And yeah, so, and I've also got evolution airdrop. So quite a few airdrops. I think there's going to be a lot more airdrops coming. Gigs wrote, Monaco, they say there is 3 more years that the central banks can print and they're done, meaning hyperinflation will set in. Do you agree? Well, could be, but hyperinflation is not a linear event. It's like yeah, you don't really know when it's going to happen. I mean, it took Germany, I guess, during what they started printing during World War One, 1916, 17, and it took until 1923 for the whole thing to implode. So about 6, 7 years. We've been doing it for 10 years. The thing is that everyone's doing it now. Susan Chappell, hi Mario, hi everyone, hi Susan. Spartacus. I am Spartacus the Great. Of course, the powers that be are behind Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Smart bunch. Those lot are. El Tomo asks Lily, give EOS some time. Yeah, I agree. It's I think it's exciting. It's just the beginning. And I heard sorry, Dan Larimer, the guy who created the software and created Steam it, he was on the Telegram chat yesterday, and he's working on a social media platform on EOS to challenge Facebook. That should be really exciting. I'm looking forward to that, to the airdrop on that one. Yeah, I have a Trezor wallet, Lily, so I hope they do a Trezor. Harrison Hardcastle. In 1967, Canada had 1,000 tons of gold. That's a good amount. And what I read as well is that Canada, uh, the Central Bank of Canada, or the government, they used to create debt-free money from, not if I'm not mistaken. And Canada that had no really, they used to just print money for projects. They used to spend money into circulation, but of course they had to join the club. Golson 83. Do you think during a crisis we will have huge short deflation and gold will go down below 1,000 before skyrocketing? Uh, no, I don't think so, because in 2008, gold had gone from 250 a few years before, like in 2000, to 1,000. Now, since the crisis, we haven't really gone that high. So I don't think so. Yeah, I know there are people like Harry Dent and Jim Rogers, who they're not really predicting. They ask him the question and they say, yeah, it's possible we could go back to below 1,000. I don't think so. Flownat07 read a book from Pierre Jovanovich. He says the CIA main goal was to get the gold from other countries. Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's what they do. Not only the gold, but also they want access to the natural resources. Yeah, Pierre Jovanovich, he's a French guy. I have some of his books too. I speak some French, and I listen to his videos sometimes. And he's been on Max Kaiser. He's pretty good guy, I think. Lynette says have 10,000 ounces of gold per 100,000 of mortgage. So about 10%, or 8%. She says when the reset happens, you will have 9 months to pay off your mortgage, and gold will rise so you can pay off your debt. That might be so. I've heard other people say that. To be careful with that. Not saying that gold might not go up, but that they might revalue the value of your debt. They're bankers, so be careful. My thing would be not to try to have as little debt as possible. I would probably take, try to pay off the mortgage as quickly as possible. Maybe sell your house. If it's gone up in value, pay off the mortgage with your proceeds and buy a smaller house. Then you don't have to have a mortgage. Who is the most credible YouTube site you listen to? I think for me, it's you and Greg Hunter. Well, thank you over here. I like Greg Hunter. Yeah, I do. Who else do I listen to? I can't think of it. I mean, I used to listen to Alex Jones, InfoWars, but he's kind of lost credit. I lost my credibility for me. He's like too too much behind Donald Trump. He doesn't criticize him anymore. Even if Donald Trump does things that if Obama had done or Bush had done, Alex Jones would have had a field day. You know, it's like he's very biased now. Fiona Whalen, I have a collection of rare and unusual precious and semi-precious stones. You think it's worth to keep them or better sell them and buy more gold? Well, it depends, how if you think you have too many of those and not enough gold, maybe yeah. Because the thing about precious stones or even diamonds, not sure if you have diamonds, is that they're not as liquid in a time of crisis, in the monetary crisis or financial crisis. Gold is always you can sell gold anytime, there's always liquidity in gold, but not for precious stones. Not to say you shouldn't have them for the long term. John Maher Mar, do you think the fact that the market cap for gold is so much higher than the market cap of silver makes silver a great opportunity above ground investment? Yeah, I've always said that, when there's bull market in precious metals, silver outperforms. So yeah. Donald Bump, Hyman, I just want to comment about Lynette Zen comment a couple of minutes ago, especially took my MacBook for it. Controlled opposition, Alex Jones. Yeah. Rickards is CIA. He knows the gold market is rigged. Yeah, and one thing about Jim Rickards is that he, yeah, I don't really, I think he is. I mean, he's hiding right in plain sight. Lily Robin, I think gold is better than stones. You cut gold in half, same value. Cut stones in half, worthless. Yeah, I mean the thing, and the price of precious stones is quite subjective, and you need to. It's difficult to find a reputable dealer, I guess, more difficult than gold. It's more gold price is more transparent, even though it's been manipulated, of course. The Cypress Tree One Hyman Echo, will they take our gold like did before if great collapse? No, I don't think they will take the gold this time because in 1933, gold was money back then, and a lot of people had it in the U.S. Not today. So yeah, I don't think they will. Susan Chappell, I can only afford fractional gold at the moment, 1/20th and sometimes 1/10th. What are your thoughts on fractional gold? There's nothing wrong with it, Susan. I've got some 1/20th of an ounce little gold coins. They're fine. They might even come, they're just as good as any amount of gold. RX4UNYC. Why do people listen to Bo Pony? Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a victim of that too. I do like listening to him. I know he's been wrong, but he's an interesting guy. I don't know what it is. It's weird. I think he's just made a new video because when I was talking here a few minutes ago, I just saw a pop up, and I think it was Gold 2020. GTFO YouTube. Any books about the Great Depression you would recommend? Oh yeah, I have one here. Hold on. Where is it? I'm just trying to find it. It's by Murray Rothbard about the Great Depression. Yeah, Google Murray Rothbard, the Great Depression. Let me try to. Oh yeah, it's this one here. America's Great Depression by Murray and Rothbard. I recommend that. So and I'll read a little bit about it here. Um, Rothbard produced in 1963 his own explanation, which turned the conventional one on its head. The severity of the Wall Street crash, he argued, was not due to the unrestrained license of a foreboding capitalist system, but to government insistence on keeping a boom going artificially by pumping in inflationary credit. There you go. It's not because of the Smoot-Hawley Act tariffs, but it's all the money printing in the 1920s. I recommend that. Over here, do U.S. Supreme Court sided with South Dakota online sales tax seem probable in the future? How will that affect online sales in the economy? Yeah, I saw that. That's not good, is it? Like, especially for small companies. Paul Sands, are we heading towards an era of extreme centralization despite all efforts to the contrary? Well, we seem to have two forces. The the establishment is trying to centralize even more, while blockchain technology is actually trying to decentralize. Hopefully, blockchain will win. That's why I like cryptocurrencies. Of course, there's a lot of volatility. Thank you, Cypress Tree One, for the donation. Joko Hughes, out of all the endless predictions, silver is going to take off. Do you have any feeling or insight into time frames? No, I don't. I try not to. A month or so ago, or even maybe a little while ago, I said that we looked like we're taking off, especially Friday the week before last. Silver was breaking out of that triangle, and look what happened on that Friday. So I don't know. I'm patient though. I've got my silver. I don't need to sell it, so I just sit on it. Gigs Row, Uyi, I saw the 100-year chart on silver. It didn't do nothing, or it didn't do anything during the Depression era periods, except the most important thing was it was redeemable for cheese bread while other people starved. Yeah, and silver was like the price was fixed, wasn't it? I mean that the price of silver was like the face value of silver didn't change. It was money, so half a quarter was a quarter of a dollar. Flaunet07, if I were to go to Venezuela with 5 ounces of gold, could I buy the country, including their oil reserves? I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, I think that's a little bit. I think a lot of rich Venezuelans, I don't think they have gold, but they have dollars. You see, in these countries, but they don't keep it there. I mean, you'd probably be able to live quite well for a few, for a year with 5 ounces of gold in Venezuela. Not sure about buying their oil reserves. I think someone else would have done it before. Don Troll on Shambos. Mario, you don't really question the Earth being round, do you? Well, how do you know? I have watched all the videos about the flat Earth, but I'm gonna leave it for you guys to. I'm not gonna give you my opinion on it because, yeah, that's something like separate from what we do. But yeah, no, I do question that actually. I actually don't know now from watching those videos what shape it really is. One thing I can say is that I don't believe all the stuff we see, all the photos. There's apparently no photos from space of the Earth. Been it's all CGI'd, isn't it? So who knows? Paul sent, could we end up with society actually splitting? One centralized portion under Chinese influence, as this is rising power as a centralized. Well, I mean, even in China, the Chinese and South Koreans, they're heavily into the blockchain, which would be decentralized. So I don't know. It's going to be different. I don't know. It's really hard to say, what's going to happen. Lily Robin, the sun is not 93 million miles away. This is a lie. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes you look, it looks really close. It doesn't look like 93 million miles. Yeah, moon landing was faked. I agree. NASA, yeah, it is. NASA is a nice, they in Florida, they've got Disney World, they got SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, and they got Cape Canaveral. So all the amusement parks are in Florida, right? Including NASA. And I've been there. SDAC, great talk, great channel. Oh, you're welcome, SDAC. So I'll take one or two more questions, and then I'm gonna call it a day. It's getting fairly late, and I've been on for an hour and 15 minutes. Flat Earth is applied idiocy. All astrophysics are incompatible with this nonsense. Dan Kurth. Well, all I'd say is people, watch the presentations, watch the videos, and make up your own mind. Let's see, another question. So, I think we'll land on this. I still have one of these though here at home, my desk. That doesn't mean I think it's like that though, does it? So, but I still have an old globe. All right. So thanks everyone for showing up. As you all know, I'm doing one of these every Sunday now, the live stream, and the next one will be on Wednesday at 9 o'clock London or 4 p.m. New York or Eastern Daylight Time. And if I ever do a live stream not on those days, I'll try to let people know. So thanks for all the participation and for showing up and for the donations on the super chat. I appreciate that. Have a good rest of the weekend or of the week if you're in Australia, because it's Monday already there. And thanks for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye.